join me in giving a very warm welcome to Richard Pasqua, 3-decade veteran of design and a good friend.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
You are doing like that. No, don't.
Can you guys all see me? Can you see my screen? Jason, can you see my screen? Jason. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining me and having me and welcoming me into your art forum event. I'm Richard Pasqua. As Jason mentioned, I've been involved in the design community, interaction community, the visual design branding community for many, many years. I do lots of different things, and I'm thrilled to be sharing some of my work and some of my work history with you guys today. This is not the first time I've presented to NASA Community College. I think a few years back, Jason and I did a live event at the school, and it was a huge success. So I'm glad to be back, and thank you for your time, because I know your time is precious these days. I hope everyone's doing well during these crazy times. I've got some thoughts regarding the time that we're all spending alone, and I'll share that later with you. But for today, I wanted to kind of go over a few things. I just have a quick outline here for you guys. One, I want to go over a little bit about me, my background, how I got to where I am, where I'm going, what I'm doing. We'll get to that shortly. We're going to go over a few case studies. 3 to 4 real-world case studies. These are active projects or projects that have been completed by myself and or my company, or with other studios for that matter. And then, you know, I might just jump into a little inspiration before we get there. We'll dot on a little bit of motion graphics and stuff like that. That's not my sole focus, but it is part of what I'm doing now. And then what we're going to do is reserve some time, 20 minutes or so you guys can ask me any questions you'd like, and that'll be moderated by Jason Gorman. Okay, so what we have here. So as we go through the presentation, just a few thoughts. I don't want to just show you work that I've done, pretty pictures. I want to show you kind of a little bit of the process that I went through, the needs, what was the ask, the problems that myself and my teams have been solving for, and then a little bit about why I present certain things a certain way, which I think is extremely valuable for college students and people entering the workforce in the next couple of years, to see how people communicate to other hiring managers, clients, potential clients, or whatnot. Okay, so just a little bit. Oh, and then I have a few links here for you, which I'll share with Jason, and he can send out in another email. Just the stuff that we're looking at today. You can take a look at my LinkedIn profile, my Behance project portfolio, some work that I do on YouTube, and then my company website as well. Now, before we get into that, you know, just a little bit about me and my history. I'm a creative director that's been working in the industry, like I said, for many, many years. I'm afraid to even admit how many years. But I specialize in interaction design, right? I started off as a graphic designer, designing anything from identity systems to, you know, page layouts for magazines or advertisements or whatnot. And then early in the, you know, the mid 90s, you know, really transitioned into interaction design, because obviously that's where everything is at. And throughout my years, I've always been a very visual person, obviously. So I always gravitated towards, you know, typography, visual layout, photo editing, photo manipulation, illustration. I've touched on 3D over the years, and motion graphics, as I mentioned to you before. But my sweet spot is really interaction design, user experience, user interface design. And a lot of these terms are great. I think the industry kind of fails from kind of title fatigue. So, you know, in a nutshell, I just call myself a creative director because I do a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, I help clients realize their end vision, both from a business, marketing, and a design standpoint. So some of the clients I've worked with in the past have been Coach Kate Spade, you know, American Express, Nickelodeon, and some of them I've worked for, you know, I was on staff, meaning working on the brand side, and then others I've worked for either through my company or other consulting type of scenarios. So a little bit about what gets me going in the morning, right? A little bit of my inspiration, and then we'll jump into some of the work. I'm a huge fan of modular synthesis. You could probably see this little guy here. I love music, making music, and a few years back, well, many years back, our friend Jason Gorman here got me into digital music production and analog production as well, back in many years ago in college. And most recently, you know, over the past couple of years, I started to teach myself how to program in analog synthesis, and I absolutely love it. It's a source of inspiration, both audibly, creatively, but it also changed my view on how I go about the creative process, right? So I bring that up because I'm a perpetual learner, and I think that's something that is needed in this industry. As creative people, we have to remain curious and continue to kind of teach ourselves and learn from others. Things that are creative, but maybe outside of our world, our graphic design world or interactive world. And there's many other places that I look for inspiration. If you look in the top right here, I love kinetic art and kinetic sculptures for the simple fact that, one, they're beautiful, two, they're physical, and a lot of times they're rooted in data and information, right? So this is an example of BMW creating these beautiful kinetic sculptures with these floating type of objects or balls, metallic balls that kind of drift up and down and create objects. I'm also into generative art here in the bottom left. This is a piece by Casey Reese, who created the application processing. I had the absolute pleasure of working with him shortly, many years ago. This is another generative piece done by a good friend of mine, Joshua Davis from PlayStation. Some of you may know him. If you don't, check him out. He does some wonderful work. He does a lot of experimental program-based live animation type of exhibits, and is currently one of the founders and managers of Zero Space, which is located in right across from Penn Station in Manhattan, which is a wonderful exhibit. You need to see it. As soon as we are all freed up from our homes and this lockdown. You know, I'm also an avid cyclist, so I get inspiration on the road, and my fellow cyclists who come from many different areas of the world and professions. So great networking, great health thing, and just a great way to clear the mind and get creative again. I also love music. Hey, you know, I threw in one of my favorites, Aphex Twin here. Absolute, you know, music fanatic. I'm sure you guys are too. And I also, you know, love, you know, I love being inspired by different illustration styles. Let me move this over here. illustration styles, and of course, poster design. This is actually one of my posters in my studio here. You can probably see it in the back. And I apologize quickly for the messy studio here. It's a small office space in my home, and I have many hobbies, so it gets a little crowded here, but thank you so much for putting up with that. So a little bit of my inspirations, and this is important to always, you know, work hard at what you're doing in school, but also keep your mind open to other areas to kind of give you inspiration in everyday business life. Okay, so I've got everything queued up here in browser windows, and one of the things here, I wanted to show you this that I put together. It's something a lot of employers, and you know, I work for myself right now. The name of my company is called Men in Gray Suits, or Cylndr. I had to change the name over the years, but the company is now Men in Gray Suits, and we do a lot of interaction design. But a lot of what I have to do to get clients and maintain clients is constantly show them what I'm about, how I communicate myself, whether it's for a full-time job or a consulting gig or anything else, or a freelance gig or company gig. You always have to prove yourself. You're always selling. So I put this together, created a package of a few different things. One was a one sheet that I can quickly send off. It has wonderful links and a little bit about myself. But this was something that I put together that explains a little bit who I am, where I've been, very quickly, and it works as a cover letter, but I call it a cover story. So you can see I give a little bit about myself, where I've been. This is the elevator pitch right here. What I specialize in, really quickly, in a nice, neat, composed, well-designed PDF that I can send off quickly. And it's a little bit more than just a cover letter, which can be cold at times. I go through my creative process. I show you how I work with teams, my experience in building teams, and then I break things down into bite-sized pieces of data so people can see, hey, how you know, a common question is, you know, as a senior person, have you managed teams? What size were those teams, and really what were the disciplines there? So I'm explaining and showing really quickly what studios I've worked for, how many people I've managed, and what disciplines I've managed for. And then, you know, my creative background, I wanted to show, hey, these are the industries I've worked for: finance, technology, publishing, some of the clients, and some of the projects there. So they want to see depth and breadth, right? And then also showing that, you know, whether it is from my own company or through an agency or brand side, how I've actually led new business and what I've pitched and won recently, right? So listing out the different companies, and this is important if you're looking to go to an agency. Maybe not as you enter the workforce, but down the road, you might want to think about showing off how you've been involved in new business. And then a little bit about myself, just showing that I'm multidimensional. I'm a hands-on person. I have interests outside of the professional world, and then also show how these interests outside of what I do every day actually influence what I do as a professional. So cycling, music, outdoor, family, all this good stuff. So let's jump into some work and take a look at kind of what I've been doing these days. And again, as I mentioned in the upfront, I'm showing you different formats. I've broken out maybe 3 or 4 different case studies for looking for full-time work, or it could be for full-time work, but predominantly for packages that I put together for you know, acquiring or winning new clients, right? So one of the companies that I've been working with is called the Hyperloop. And you may have heard of it. Elon Musk wrote a white paper several years ago inviting the world to kind of take an idea that he's had of this magnetic rail system that is not a train, but it's a high-speed capsule that carries many people and cargo across long distances at high speeds. So it's a new technology. It's an innovation type of company that needed to tell the world who they are and what they do. So this is just me showing, hey, this is what I did for them. And you'll notice it is a lot of, there's a lot of writing, right? So another important thing as you mature through your design careers, you need to be able to kind of write and explain yourself, and people pay attention to that quite a bit, especially as you advance in your career. So my thing is I wanted to show what my role is, what the problem was, right? And what our goals are, and then obviously the work, the process, and then kind of the results, right? So really quickly, the challenge here, and I was getting at it before, was to explain what they do and how it will benefit society if we're going to do this. So our audiences were everyday people, everyday commuters, but it was also people that they want to help, helping them acquire scientists, researchers, engineers, developers, designers to join their community and help build this. But it's also municipalities and governments and investors as well. So understanding your audience. And this is a little snapshot of the process: discover, define, create, and develop, right? And this is kind of a snapshot of the product process in developing a digital product, and one that I put together for them. So you can see everything is broken out. Discover what we did there, and then the action items, so they can see exactly what I've done. Now, a big part of these case studies and explaining who you are, wherever it is telling a story, right? A great creative and great creative concepts are usually, or almost 100% of the time, born from a story, right? And those stories are born from goals, business, marketing, whatnot, and brand goals, right? So understanding the brand and crafting stories around the brand is extremely important. So one of the themes here for the Hyperloop in creating a presence, whether it be web, advertising, or whatever else, was the idea of challenging time, right? So we're all busy. We have family lives. We have personal, social lives. The biggest time suck for everyone else, for everyone, is actually traveling to work, right? Maybe not so right now, but this is a big problem. How do we shave time off of our commute? How do we get to other cities outside of, say, New York or wherever else quickly? So the idea of challenge time was born, right? The idea of challenging time itself, right? And what would we do with our extra time? And how do we shine a light on the importance of the Hyperloop and this project? And one of the ideas was, okay, how do we spend more time with our family, our careers, and all that stuff? But was also shining a light on the idea that this is like the first, man on the moon. This is like climbing Everest, or the first in flight with the Wright brothers. It's that important, right? So we're using a lot of these themes in creating advertising, marketing, and then digital products, which you'll see in a few minutes. So this is really an advertisement showing the brand, how they can communicate to everyday people, right? What would you do with your extra time? The family backpacking, having fun, and of course, that's top of mind for a lot of people. Now, if you're an engineer, we want to show you that this is the biggest project you're probably ever going to work on, or a scientist, or an analyst, or whatever it may be. Are you ready to go further? So the messaging was about, and the visuals were very dramatic in the sense of, are you ready to go to the moon? Are you ready to really change the world? So it becomes a question and a challenge, right? So this is how we're planning it, and also showing the technology, and you're starting to see some of the visual systems start to come out of this already. One of the first things we did was storytelling on the web, right? So how, it's time to go further. And if you're looking at this as a website, it would have these engaging animations, and there's an actual animatic for this, but I don't really actually have it right now. But telling people, warming them up, telling them what to expect, how to get involved, and all this good stuff. So this is a pretty robust website. But we backed them out and started to look at kind of the brand itself too. We did some brand explorations for them, but really focused on creating a visual system that will transcend both print, physical space, and obviously digital. So this is just a mood board we put together, but there's a tremendous, again, there's a tremendous amount of user experience design that went into this in telling the right story. And I want to show in this case study, and it's important if you're going for user experience and everything else like that in your career, to show the processes you went through. So I'm just giving a sample of, hey, we kept a database of content that mapped to a site structure or an architecture. That architecture was then, born from that architecture was wireframes. And this is just illustrating how we actually crafted the kind of the composition or the experience before we even hit any of the brand design or any of the visual systems. Now, again, digging into the process, showing how we prototyped. We prototyped with Envision or kind of softly programmed wireframes, low fidelity, high fidelity, and showing what we learned. Showing how we went about designing the user interfaces is extremely important. Some of the features that we put in there were kind of pretty advanced. So if you hit the website, to show how fast and dramatic this technology is, as soon as you hit the website, we had a little ticker on the bottom here. We had a little system that opened up and told you the duration you've been on the website and how far you would have been traveling from your destination. So if I hit the website from New York, it would tell me how long it would take to go to Chicago. And it would tick down the speed and the geographic location of how far you would have been traveling. So it's kind of fun driving home that experience through these little modules and innovation ideas. And then we started to build visual systems for the UI, so colors, patterns, typography, graphics. And it was a very, very informationally based type of project. You'll start to see it kind of come together on interfaces and route simulators that we created. So one of the first marketing tools that we wanted to create was a route simulator that you can use on your phone or the website or a microsite that would show you exactly how well this is working. And we baked it into the website with the mini module as well. But you can see how, the visual system's working out and how we're adapting these to kind of real-time data type of tools. A lot of the infographics and the interface design is actually now being implemented both on board with the capsule and through other dashboards and stuff like that the Hyperloop team is actually using. So This is just a snapshot of kind of some of the screens we put together, both for the web and some of the other route simulator tools, and then showing how the visual system is playing out, both informationally. So there's a lot of infographics, a lot of rich graphics, a little bit on the sci-fi side, which is just fine by me, and it looks pretty cool and fun. So you want engineers and you want a lot of different people to kind of be engaged, and the slicker your interface is, the better it is a lot of times for people. But at the end of the day, it is about serving up data, information, analytics, and statistics cleanly and accurately, but also in a branded fashion to everyone around the world. Just some screens, some mobile, and I'm going to move on to the next one. And again, in the spirit of understanding, the packaging, if you will, this is done on Behance. So you can see I have a full portfolio here built on Behance, right? Let's see here. I think I was on this one. This is a project that was super fun. It was called Darwin's Ark, and it was an exercise in helping scientists from the Broad Institute and MIT help define an audience and help communicate a new brand that was launching for a product that was super, super interesting. And they call it citizen science because they want a community of dog and cat owners to get involved and supply them with DNA data. So it is a brand that I would say is like 23andMe for dogs. So every time I show this, people freak out because people love animals and dogs, probably more so than they do their kids. But what we did was, okay, how do we help them kind of be a tier one brand and experience in this space that's fairly new, but also becoming a bit, I wouldn't say congested, but there are definitely competitors. So one of the things we had to do was kind of figure out the architecture, how many brands will live under the Darwin's Ark brand, dogs, cats, ticks. They're doing a whole bunch of different research in different areas. And one of the first things we did was start to look at, all right, what is the brand? Do a lot of research, dig into what is the mark, what is the brand visual system, and we created this kind of three-dimensional helix that was predicated on this creative concept of this one-line illustration. So everything within the visual system has a very one-line or simple illustration style, which you can see here. This is just an example of kind of the inspiration we pulled from. And you can see that this is Darwin's Ark is the master brand, and Darwin's Dogs is a sibling brand, right? So you can see it's a one-line illustration that is very stylistic, very clean. It works in small spaces like mobile and social, but it also has a presence and can be illustrative as well. We went on then to create a fairly robust visual system. And hold on one second. Jason? Okay. Sorry about that, guys. We're at the halfway point. So a little visual system that we put together, very crisp, dynamic, super friendly. Showing this exercise is about showing them what things could be done and how we can execute on data, images, typography, line work, and color. And then from there, lots of marketing materials, interfaces, dashboards were created. So just like 23andMe, you would send out for swabs for your dog. You'd send it back and you'd get information back regarding the dog's or cat's breed. So this is actually my dog, who is a Bojax. His name is Jax, and it tells you exactly what breed or family that this particular dog comes from. So it's really, really fun. And here's more of the visual system brought to life through the website, which is launched. And then what we did was put together infographics as well to show how dynamic it could be and fun. Because you want this experience not to be dry and kind of boring. You want it to be inviting. We also looked at how we could render this in advertising, kind of make an emotional, take more of an emotional approach to things and invite people into being citizen scientists. We also put together concepts. So in the spirit of product design, true product design, it wasn't about how we just visually represent things, but how do we take a really cool idea and expand on that and bring new products and services to light for people who do want to contribute to the citizen science community and Darwin's Ark. So we created the actual product itself, the containers, and then additional products. So if you're at the dog walk, you're walking the dog, you're at a park, whatever it may be, you can pop on your Apple Watch app, Darwin's Ark app, and record, Scruffy's, eating habits, pooping habits, how long they like to stay out, or any other kind of attributes that might contribute to the whole citizen science type of scenario. And we also kind of put together print collateral and all that good stuff. So another project, because we're at the halfway point here, is I ran product, I was head of product, or the CXO, or Chief Experience Officer for Newsweek Media Group. And I ran many products and brands for Newsweek Media Group, including Newsweek.com, PlayerOne.com, InternationalBusinessTimes.com, and then a whole bunch of other sciences and entertainment type of publications. And my job there was to kind of reinvigorate all of these brands through new product and new product processes. One of which I really enjoyed was creating a brand new brand for a gaming website. So one of the things we wanted to do was, one, attract new, adopt users from other websites within the publishing community, both in and outside of Newsweek, and create this new brand that was really engaging. So we had to create the brand, like brand up, visuals, everything down to the platform itself. And what that meant was really kind of creating a whole new visual system first, which you can see. This visual system was born from the idea of, hey, people are PC gamers, they're Xbox people, they're Sony, they're Sega people, they look for cheats, they look for codes, they want to look for downloads and just inspiration regarding the brands they love and the products they love. So the whole idea was kind of born, this brand identity was born from a little bit of kind of retro gaming meets more modern, almost sci-fi, acid rain kind of look. And the identity system could work as a color system alone with this little acid rain graphic. It could be together, and player.one is the URL, which is nice. And then you could do P1, where it's really small and you can use that for social and whatnot. So color systems, typography treatments were born from there. And then we went into actually rendering how this would actually look on the web through wireframes, prototyping, testing, and all that, and everything that comes with it. We did face-to-face testing, user testing, remote testing, testing with gamers, non-gamers, everything. We also created an Apple News app. We were one of the first to be on the Apple News app a few years ago, which was really fun. And then we rendered a whole bunch of different, information graphics and visual graphics that kind of capture the idea of this edgy gaming platform. As you can see, this is how it renders on mobile. And then again, in the spirit of, telling the story of what we're doing here, I wanted to capture some of the success. And some of our goals from a marketing and a business standpoint was to attract new users, new millennials, actually engage female audiences more, which we were very successful with in bumping up those numbers. Of course, in the publishing world, you want to increase engagement and, referring traffic and, develop branded content for marketing and advertising as well. So a little quick snapshot there of player one. And let's go to one more here. This is a project I worked with when I was running user experience design for Siegel+Gale, which is a big branding firm here in New York. One of our clients was a Middle Eastern client called Do Telco, and it's like the AT&T of the Middle East. And I spent many, many months in in Dubai and Qatar and Abu Dhabi, working with across multicultural teams and development teams and design teams to create a set-top box type of experience. Now, a lot of this stuff is baked into your TVs, but this was more like a Roku, the Roku of the Middle East, and it was called NXT or Next. And it was a smart home interactive experience. So a system that you could, a hardware system that you could attach to your home entertainment system, and it networks security, Ring doorbells, anything else like that, energy conservation type of devices like thermostats, monitoring climate, energy consumption, and of course video, your video on demand that you have on your home networks, and then subsequently any other networks like Hulu or any of the other streaming services. So we created the whole visual system, but it was all about information and how it renders on screen on multiple devices, one being the TV. And this is what you would call kind of a platform agnostic design approach, where we're designing across multiple platforms at once. It needs to work on mobile because there is a mobile component to it. It has to work on web, and it certainly has to work on your TV, right? So another thing is, I like to show off, again, I'm not much of a motion designer. I do know enough to be dangerous, but what I do like to do from a motion standpoint is help the client imagine how this might work or look or feel from a brand or a usability perspective on screen. How would a preview show? So giving little snapshots, even in motion, is really, really nice to do. One of the big things was, the connected home, so you can actually see different screen views from any room in the house, from security cameras. But then we also, a fun and challenging part of the project was actually developing the language, the visual language and placement of some of the remote control designs. Where does the doorbell go? Where's the home screen? So understanding physical proximity and how people develop habits using their phone as a remote and or an actual physical remote.
Excuse me, Rich.
Yes.
I just want to give the students a heads up. I've opened up the chat. Please do not abuse that. If you'd like to ask a question of Rich, please type it out in the chat to everyone, and we'll call on you and get as many questions as we can in. Rich, are you close to being ready to go to questions?
Yeah. You know what? I'm not seeing the chats come up, but we can work through that in a minute.
About a 15 minutes left.
Okay. So a couple other projects, you know, from a motion standpoint, this is something I put together. I was doing some telematic work for different technology and SaaS companies, and I got really involved in doing telematic design. So information and design or experience design within a cockpit of a truck, a car, or anything else like that. And this is showing how I'm creating a for the trucking industry kind of telematics and information graphics that go with it. So again, using motion design to help sell an idea, right? I put that to work and did a thought leadership piece, and then used that actually to sell within that vertical. And people really enjoyed it. Then some other motion graphic stuff. I like to play around with After Effects and Red Giant within After Effects, and just doing some fun animation and graphics for my company that I can put up on social media or anywhere else. Whoops. Recently, I've been playing with how to create motion graphics that are linked to either MIDI or other sound inputs. So this is done in After Effects. I'm now working in Notch. Notch is another application where you can actually do real-time graphics. And this is something I did in Notch just the other day, where you've got this chaotic stream of objects and graphics that I've put together and then programmed it to react to either MIDI or a wave sound file. So, Jason, you want to open up to questions?
Yes. Because of the time left, maybe what you could do is just in the chat indicate you have a question, or if you know how to raise your hand, you can do that.
I'm not seeing the chat questions.
That's okay. I'm talking to the participants. Sorry. Everybody,
Okay,
if you'd like to chat that you have a question, then I'll open up the mic for you so you can ask your question, and I'll call you by name. But you have to give an indication. If you can't do that, just send me an email and I'll try to see what's wrong. I'm turning on the chat now. Sorry about that. Everybody should be able to chat, but please don't abuse that. Okay, Lewis, let me just turn your mic on. Go ahead with your question, Lewis.
Hello, my name is Lewis Fleming. The question I have is, when dealing with client work, how many restrictions or how much freedom do you find yourself with the overall like final design of the product? Like how much freedom or how much freedom is taken when you design something for clients?
Thank you, Lewis. Good question. So how much freedom do I have, or my team have, over the creative output of what we're making eventually, right? If I'm hearing you correctly. So it is a challenge, and this is something gets easier. It's tough in the beginning, but it gets easier as you move on in your career. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. It is about selling. So you have to sell yourself to get the job, and you're constantly selling ideas and concepts. So the easiest way to get a creative idea across to the client is to make sure that before you're presenting anything, whether it be an identity system or user experience, wireframes, or polished website designs, or whatever it may be, or illustrations, you want to kind of repeat back to them that you understand that you heard them. Not only did you hear them, but you're taking their needs, both business and marketing needs, and translating it into something you think is beautiful and relevant within their category. So the more you can upsell, a little upsell before you present to show them, yes, I've heard you, and here's why this is good. So if you're just, we've all had this happen where, wow, this looks great and it's amazing and I love it, and the client's gotta love it. Well, they don't have to love it, because if it's not rooted in research or design thinking or business and marketing, they're not going to be able to identify with it as easily as you would, maybe from an aesthetic level. So the easiest way to get your work accomplished and together and kind of get sign off and buy-in is to have a little bit of that story. And one, again, stories are important. And two, facts and data that back up your thinking, right? And this is what I call accountability in design. It's no longer, ooh, let's make beautiful posters. Well, does that poster actually have a purpose? Is it communicating properly? And is it going out to the right person? And I use a poster as an old school example, but that thinking is more applicable in interactive design as we move forward. I hope that answered it, because the more you have up front and the more you are able to explain why you did things that relate to what the needs are of the client, the easier time you're going to have selling off your creative idea. I hope that makes sense.
Darian, go
Yes.
ahead with your question.
All right. My name is Darian Javeria, and my question is that how do you create this 10-second animation with graphics and design with the pinkish brain, the one we just saw, for the 10-second animation of the video?
Like something like this?
Yeah, something like that.
How did I create it?
Yeah.
Well, I'll back up a little bit. Motion graphics are not my forte, but I seem to do okay with it. I like it. I love it. It's just time consuming. And a little something that I'll throw out to everyone out there is, as we're all stuck at home, you know, I started to learn motion graphics through Adobe After Effects with various plugins. This was created with Red Giant. It's a pretty, After Effects is a standard, wonderful standard program for doing animations, infographics and whatnot. I would say, you know, if you have some motion graphics behind you and you're, say, a UX designer or whatever, kudos, you're going to be able to render things. But how I created this was in After Effects. As we have time at home, I would implore everyone to say, yes, I need to do my schoolwork with Jason. I want to do a killer job and get great grades, of course, and graduate with honors, but also challenge yourself in learning new tools, right? And understand how those tools can help what your main focus is too. So motion graphics could help UX. Motion graphics can help illustration, can help everything else. But how I create these, After Effects, and now I'm starting to do more work in, say, this was done in Notch. I'm very fascinated with creating real-time graphics that work with MIDI signals and or, did we crash? Okay. MIDI signals or any other wave formats.
Okay, thank you. Tushar, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question. We have a few people waiting for questions. Just type them out if you can.
Do you hear me, guys? Okay. The only question I had was in the chat. What's a must social or print sources that you recommend for freshman or sophomore graphic design students to be inspired by?
So what what websites do I, or social networks, would I suggest to get inspired by? I think that was the question. Another good question. Inspiration for me comes in lots of different areas. I am kind of platform agnostic. I don't spend much time on Facebook because I think it's pointless and useless. I do really enjoy Instagram. I've curated my feed to be less about babies and puppies and what your aunt your aunt and uncle are doing, and more like animation, illustration, design, music, modular synthesis. So I've curated it so I have this endless feed of inspiration. There are some logo design, if you're into logo design. There are some wonderful feeds there that will give you some inspiration. But ultimately, inspiration comes to us in lots of different forms. As you can see, I'm all over the place. I love music. I love seeing how people do live performances. I love to see the graphic packages that sound designers put together and different bands put together. I'm heavily influenced by the automotive industry in a lot of ways, illustration and music and sculpture. So whatever floats your boat. But I do believe Dribbble and Behance are really, really good networks. One, to get yourself out there and promote yourself, and that's right here. This is really good. And I only started using this, and I started using it because it was really nice and easy to set up different case studies in a very graphic way without, creating hundreds of websites or fumbling around with HTML too much. You can actually tell a story quick and easy. Plus, it's linked to a network of other designers, motion designers, branding people, UX people. So I love Behance. It's really good. It's really easy. People can give you feedback and comments if you set your account up that way. And you can kind of show off a menagerie of different projects. Dribbble is also a good one. Those are the two big ones I would kind of go to. There are other freelance networks out there that you can kind of join and get part-time gigs depending on how you're doing it. I would also set up a personal website for yourself if you're looking to set up a portfolio. You'll notice over the years it's going to be your portfolio is everything, and you're going to continue to work on it from now to whenever. So I hope that answered that.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to thank all of the professors and teachers that are here in the audience today, and all 75 of you were really packed. The next question comes from Professor McBride. Go ahead, Professor McBride. Professor McBride, we don't hear your question. You're on speaker. All right, yeah, I'm going to go to another student. Professor McBride, if you'd like to chat your question, I will read it out after the next student. Mr. Paul, go ahead.
Me. So how do you use NXT such as in the Middle East, which you're saying, how can you use the energy for that?
How can I use energy for that?
Yeah, for the NXT.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean. How do I use energy? You mean like my personal energy? Like,
yeah, some energy, security, convenience. Talking about smart home experience.
Oh, so how do I represent the energy you're saving or the convenience, if I'm hearing you correctly?
In the NXT, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's part of it's, you know, again, touching on designing for purpose, right? What you're seeing here are wireframes and whatnot. A lot of the tools, techniques, information that was brought to life within the wireframing and what I would call the product development stage of this project was indeed the energy that was being saved and convenience, right? So your smart home devices are sending signals to the network, and the network is rendering your feedback on something like this dashboard, where it's telling you how many lights are on. Further to your point, further renderings of this or exhibits of this will show energy saved versus used. How, you know, you can see how this is actually shaking out to kind of give users more information. So when it comes to information, you have different types of users. Some people just want a snapshot, and this is actually, this interface is showing you a snapshot of what's on, what's used, how many gigabytes or terabytes are left on your home network, and all that good stuff. But as you click down and into it, it could show you how much energy is being used or absorbed based on LED lights, heating, all of the good stuff. So as the actual smart home tools advance and the data they give advances, that the interface here and the design and the experience will advance with it. Thank you.
So we've met the end of the scheduled time, but are you able to go a little longer? We do have an abundance of questions lined up.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we'll continue as long as Rich is willing, and you are able to stay. Mark Yam, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, just wondering which project was the most challenging that you showed us?
So, yeah, great question. Now, challenging is it's a little bit of an open-ended question because every project should be challenging, right? There is no real easy project, and that's why we do what we do. We're problem solvers, right? But I would say the project that had the most challenges was when I was working with Newsweek Media Group, which included the project for International Business Times, Player.one, and Newsweek. I was running product, so it was about how to assemble the right team of people, from analysts to product managers to UX designers, front-end developers, back-end developers. It was really challenging in the sense of organizing a very diverse team that could work seamlessly together, bring ideas to the table, but also bring ideas to light in a very efficient manner, and rendering it across multiple platforms and multiple brands. So a lot of what we did on these projects was rooted in, you know, not just beautiful, hey, how do we render the typography? It was really rooted in showing, you know, a lot of what we can do and ideas what we around what we can do on the advertising platform. So this was not an exercise in just how do we render Newsweek in a beautiful way or International Business Times in a beautiful way. It was doing hundreds of iterations of ad placements and ad using new and existing ad technologies and different ad placements that sold newspapers, if you will, got engagement up, but was not so intrusive to the audience where they couldn't read things, which we all hate, right? You know, a lot of these projects went on to win design awards within the publishing community. So I think we did a really good job there. But it was challenging because it was a true end-to-end product development, branding right down to finished product and platform development. So it was managing, I think the biggest challenge of this was exactly what I said, but it was also managing expectations from the C-suite down to the team that was actually building this. Managing expectations and also making sure that the team felt that whether you were on the publishing team or the product team, or a writer for that matter, or a marketing person, everyone felt that it was an inclusive environment, that their ideas were being heard and implemented. So challenging, very challenging when you have multiple teams and you're sitting in the middle.
Emmanuel Gomez, oh, sorry. Emmanuel Gomez, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my question is, when you first started working in graphic design with clients, how did you get your confidence?
Awesome question. You know what? Confidence, confidence comes and goes sometimes. And your confidence could be smashed in a heartbeat, in a quick, hot second by, a very authoritative client or even a manager for that matter. You're going to get, especially in the beginning, it's a very important thing to have confidence. Know what you know what you don't know, and know where you want to be in the next 5 years, right? So, and continuously work to that. But I think getting back to some of the other thoughts regarding projects and how to sell projects, whether it be a simple design project to a full-blown product that you're launching, confidence is paramount, right? Now, there's a difference between being confident as a creator and ego, right? There are many times where you have to let your ego go and roll with it. The idea of being an executive creative director in the world we live in now with agencies and client sides, especially the agency side, it's whether you're a strategist or creative director or whatever it may be, there are a lot of egos, a lot. And that's okay to have an ego. But more importantly is to have confidence. And if you understand the story you're telling, both strategically and informationally, and you are good at what you do and you're rendering things, or even if you're learning and you're doing a good job and you're putting your best foot forward, you should feel confident because you are able to tell the story and you're able to sell it through data, research, and learnings that, say, a strategist or yourself or your design team has done prior to it. So not only are you should feel confident in your work, you should feel confident in expressing why you did things. And it's hugely important. Thank you, that was great.
Jordy, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, I am Jordy Carvajal, and let me see my question. In your business or in any job in the graphic design industry, do graphic designers work alone or as a team with clients?
So another great question. That varies, right? So when I'll give you a few examples. Say when I worked, I ran the design team and built the design team for Nickelodeon Online. And we handled several brands for them. There was a team of about 20 illustrators, designers, animators, UX, UI, and front-end developers. And I believe I mentioned animators and sound engineers. So I sat in the middle of that. I managed everyone. So if you're talking about something like game design, there's a lot of components there. There's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of cause and effect. So it depends on the platform you're developing for. It depends on the project itself. Sometimes, most of the time I have a team, right? And my team As a creative director, I can assemble, if I'm working, say, for my client, my personal clients for my company, I will assemble a bespoke team that is small, senior, and very, very, they're practitioners rooted in specialties. So I may hire a UX designer to help me put together the entire experience under my tutelage and and guidance and direction. A lot of times I will hire a writer because I can write, but I'm not an editor, I'm not a writer. We'll bring someone on. I will bring people on as strategists, but that's fairly high level. Now, as a designer, you know, in school, you're probably going to be working for one client at a time or a couple of clients at a time by yourself. But again, know what you know and know what you don't know, right? Everything you put out there on, you know, your portfolio or to, you know, potential clients and or full-time hires or hiring people is a representation of yourself. So tell the right story and put your best foot forward and make sure that you're going to be, you know, doing the right thing. If you're hired to write and design something, if you're a writer and a designer, kudos, that's great. But if not, you know, bring on a team member or trusted team member that you can work with that it has that specialty. But a lot of times in the beginning, you know, of my career, I worked alone, I worked fast, and I worked a lot. You know, what I would say is confidence and quality is built through repetition. And some of the strongest skills you can learn is how to manage your time, tell the right story, and, you know, get paid.
Tiara, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hi, my question was, all the things that you're able to do now as a designer, like all the techniques and skills that you learned, was there a time where all of this intimidated you?
Awesome. Another awesome question. Thank you. I think intimidation, you know, for me, if I'm not intimidated, it's probably not for me. Meaning, personally, I like the challenges I get with my clients, but I also love challenging myself and pushing myself out of the box. That's kind of rare, but I think to really accelerate within the design community, I don't want to say graphic design, because graphic design is, I think it's a term that, I mean, people understand, but user experience, what I would say is continuously, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, push yourself out of your box. Make yourself uncomfortable. Learn something. It doesn't mean you have to be, a consummate professional, say at After Effects, but because you're a graphic designer, push yourself out, learn how to extend what you're doing, but also know when the time is. Don't overload yourself with learning. Know when the right time is the right time, and continuously open up different applications. Continuously push yourself. But a good thing is, especially as younger designers entering the workforce or working, you have the ability, you should give yourself the right and the privilege to learn and fumble. And what I would say is to overcome some of these fears, right, or maybe slight anxiety, is to just keep going at it. Keep going at it, keep learning it, but also understand the tools that are gonna push you further in your career in that moment, and understands the ones that are maybe on the periphery that are gonna accentuate your career, and understand how much time to put into it. But never be afraid. One of the best things to learn right off the bat in design is to learn how to learn, right? So learning how to learn is the biggest thing. And this is something that's not going to be taught at a community school. It's not going to be taught at a university or a trade school or whatever. You have to learn how to learn, doing your own research, understanding where to get free tutorials, free samples of software, understand how to dig in and play without spending lots of money or time, and kind of keep pushing yourself that way. Like I said, I'm learning, I've been learning a little bit of Touch Designer and Notch, both of which use a bit of JavaScript, which I'm not a developer. I can visually program things, so they work a little bit more on the visual end of things. Super intimidating for me, but it's something I've always wanted to learn as far as adding intelligence and data and programming behind design, right? And I think a lot of what we're doing as designers is going that way. So design and animation rooted in technology and data and databases will be very, very important in the future. But you should never, become so intimidated that it freezes you, right? There's no harm in trying, and go for it. And what I would say is, as you're going to start to land small projects in school and post-graduation, continue to push your clients, big or small, and say, hey, we put together this motion design thing, prototype, so you can envision it. And maybe it was your first project. And as long as it gets your point across and you're selling the idea, go for it, do it. A way to get out of that anxiety or that pressure that you might put on yourself is to do a little extra for each project and push it and start to learn other software, so that it's maybe not attached to the project, but you're learning and offering more to your clients and your professors. I hope that helps.
Eddie, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Mr. Pasqua. My question is, how do you personally go about determining your prices for your clients?
Good question. Well, I've got, over the years, both client side, agency side, and for myself, I have this formula, if you will, and it's a little bit, it's not really cemented in stone here, but there's like three things: fame, fortune, and fun, right? So fame, is this project going to get me noticed, right? So a lot of the work, for example, I did for the Hyperloop, I did as a contributor. I wanted personally, I felt an attachment to the brand, both from a technology and innovation standpoint and what it possibly could do from an energy consumption and from a planet perspective or a green perspective. I felt this embodied what I was about as a creative and a human being. So there is that. Fortune, that project or any other project, is it going to bring me money? Or a little bit of money, a lot of money, or maybe float in the middle? And fun. Is it going to enhance my portfolio? And am I going to enjoy what I'm doing, right? So the optimal experience is to have all three. And that's like the dream project, where you're getting paid nicely to do a project that you truly believe in, and that you're having fun with. But you got to have at least two of those, right? And as far as the dollars and cents standpoint, it really depends. So dollars and cents can go up or down depending on the fun factor, or less than that, more about, is this going to help me promote my business? Is it going to help me promote my skills? Is it going to help me get a job? Is it going to help me get another job? So understanding that, also dipping in and understanding and looking at certain websites like Glassdoor or any other ones that will show you a general median of salaries and or freelance salaries, understanding, from a skill level perspective, the type of project and timing where your budgets will come in. But overall, from the day I started to now, I generally have like a rate sheet that I do, and depending on the clients and the amount of work that's put into it, those rates will go up or down. And again, factoring in the three factors that I mentioned earlier. So I balance it out, but generally I have a kind of a set hourly or day rate. And when you're pricing your projects, it's very important. What we do, in the design community here, one, we love what we do. We're going to school for it. We work hard every day as professionals in this area, and we love what we do. But you also have to realize that you are contending every project is up for review, meaning every project, that is going out to you as a potential freelancer or consultant or whatever you may be, is going out to you. It's also going out to 3, 4, 5, 10 other people. So you have to understand and get a read on the need first and foremost, and the objectives and the goals of that particular client, so you can craft a presentation and or budget or plan to them that is smart and strategic, so you do get the job.
All right, it looks like we have time for one more question, and one more question is what we have. If for some reason I missed your question from a few minutes ago, chat with me right now and we'll see if we can get it. Otherwise, Steele, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Steele Brogdon. I was just wondering, when you feel uninspired, or if you do, how do you usually get back into a creative mindset? Like, what best gets you back into the flow of being able to create again?
Yeah, another really important question, and thank you for asking that. This is it's so important that I consider creatives kind of a special breed. Whether you're a painter, an illustrator, sculptor, designer, whatever it is, I consider this group here to be very, very special in the sense that we're trying to communicate something that is on focus for the client, but also is very rewarding to ourselves and fun. And if you're not having fun, what are you doing, right? So, but inspiration, and I touched a little bit of this in the beginning, those are certain things that in my daily life I'll stream by, I love looking at. But the idea of being blocked or having creative ennui, if you will, or just being in a lull is completely, absolutely normal. And it happens all the time to the most senior people, to the most junior people and students and beyond. You just are not feeling something. A lot of times, and this took me many years to learn how to do. When I was first started off, I had to do the best job in the allotted time, in X amount of time, and I had to do it start to finish, in one stream. And it took me years to realize that you don't really have to do that. Certain projects are under certain time constraints, and obviously we all have deadlines, and deadlines are great because it's going to push you to learn how to do things faster, more streamline your workflows and everything else like that. Perfect, great. But creative lulls come all the time, right? And I'm no different. A lot of times when I'm doing something and the time permits, and I have a few days to put something together, and I'm stuck, and I have to create a concept or a whole thing that the strategy has to hinge on from a design perspective, I will put it down and walk away. I will give myself the right to put it down. I will not beat myself up over it. Again, this took me years to do. Let it sit for a day or two or whatever it may be. make sure you're meeting your deadlines, especially for school, but put it down, whether it's for an hour or a day or 2 days. Put it down, come back to it with fresh eyes, and resume. Sometimes when that happens with me, I will completely ditch the idea. I will ditch sketches that I've done and start fresh, or I'll continue with new ideas that I've baked over time. This is nothing to be scared of, to be afraid of, nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to everyone. And especially when you're learning something new, modular synthesis for me, music production, I literally will start, I'm working on a song right now that's been taking me 2 months, 3 months. But I gave myself that right to do that because it's a side thing that I'm learning, a creative side thing that I'm learning, and I'm giving myself the right to not beat myself up over it. Keep busy, keep working, but also give yourself the right and the privilege to kind of hit pause when you need to. I hope that helped.
Rich, do you have time for one more question? Just
I
one
do.
more
Go
question.
for it. I'd love to.
All right, so 1 o'clock class is coming around. Maybe you could also finish with your closing statements, then I will unmute the mics and we'll wish you appreciation. Thank you. So Rachel, I'm going to unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question. 1 second. I'm unable to unmute you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just have one question. So for current students who are interested in the field of design, what is the best advice that you can recommend to them in order to kind of work their way up in the field to eventually become a creative director?
Yeah, good. Excellent question again. This is what, so it's interesting, and I'm going to just share a little bit. I'll be a little bit retrospective. What I would say is everyone wants to be a creative director, but everyone is not a creative director. Everyone wants to direct and produce, Blade Runner 2049, but a lot of us are not movie directors or special effects people. What I would say is it's an interesting question because design right now, and I have to back up to answer your question, design right now means something completely different to me now than it did when I first started off. When I started, it was graphic design. Let's do page layouts. Let's do illustrations. Let's edit photos, and let's be an art director, right? And you're directing art. You're directing layouts. You're directing a lot of different things. Understand. The more you understand the path you want to take as a designer, or and I don't want to say designer, as a creative person, right? Because there are creative strategists, there are creative visual designers, there are creative product designers. There's lots of things you can do in the creative world, especially within the design world. It gets confusing what these roles mean to what company and what organizations. And that's what I would consider what I was talking about before is title fatigue. People overuse things. They beat words up like innovation and experience up. So it becomes hard to understand what it is. But overall, have an idea. If you know you're starting off as a graphic designer, but you want to migrate into, say, user experience design, is a creative director the right path or the next step for someone? Usually you go through and you're interning, you're doing freelance work, you're going to get hired. You're going to get hired as a designer, a junior designer, a designer. You might be a junior product designer. You might be a junior graphic designer. You'll move up. You might be an art director. Only you know when the right time for a shift is, right? But what I would say is everyone, if I had a nickel for every designer that wanted to be a creative director and pushed and pushed and pushed within an organization to become creative director and skip 3 or 4 processes or roles in between, I'd be very, very rich, because everyone wants to do that. But one thing I would say is, don't get caught up in titles, right? Do not get caught up in that. Get caught up in understanding what your purpose is as a designer or creative person is first. What do you want to do for the world? What do you want to do for yourself? What do you want to do for clients? Answer those questions as you're going through life, but also understand the role that you're fitting into now. Understand, obviously, the process and the next roles to fill, and shoot for those. But make sure you're doing a great job in the job that you're in first. Understand how to sell yourself with data and storytelling, and then start to move forward. Creative directors sit on top of product and design projects all the time, and they are the ones who kind of stitch the strategy and the design team together, right? So you have to understand, you have to be very strategic. When you get to a creative director's role, it almost is less about the creative execution and in some agencies, and it's more about how to continuously inspire and sell up and across a client's product world. Don't get hung up on it. Be natural. Take the right progressions. Feel good about taking the next steps. You'll know it. And get outside counsel. Get points of view on your work, how you're communicating, and you can do that with outside professionals, your professors like Jason, and friends and family.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Great questions. I really appreciate the fact that you guys are engaged. And what I would say is keep pushing yourselves as we're kind of in this weird time. One last thought, learn something new. Don't come out of this quarantine without learning something new or creating something new. Embrace DIY, make it. If you don't have it, you can't afford it, figure out how to do it and make it. Figure out how to get licenses for applications that you want to learn. Most software companies are very generous to students, so I would say take advantage of that. And don't put too much pressure on yourselves. You know, do what you got to do. This is a tough time, but continue to learn. It's a great time to be active and doing more projects for yourself, building your portfolios, and perhaps building your network for design clients.
All right, I'm going to unmute everybody so you can say goodbye, and we are going to exit the meeting very shortly.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
How was it actually?
Your mics have... Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.